Welcome to CharityVillage Connects. I'm Mary Barrell. Recently, CanadaHelps published its 2024 Giving Report that found for the 11th year running, the number of Canadians making charitable donations has declined yet again. This alarming decline in Canadians giving to charity transcended economic circumstances. In other words, was not solely caused by recessions, pandemics, or inflationary spikes. The report, entitled From Disconnection to Collective Action, points to other important demographic and societal trends as potential causes. Joining me to discuss these important issues is Justin Scaini, Executive Vice President, Culture and Chief Strategy Officer for the Kids Help Phone. Justin brings extensive consulting, financial services, and healthcare experience to his role supporting young people across Canada. He leads the design and coordinated implementation of Kids Help Phone's strategic portfolio of projects and initiatives. Welcome to the podcast, Justin.
Pleased to be with you, Mary. Thanks so much for having me.
I wonder if we could start by you telling us a little bit about your organization.
Absolutely. When folks think about Kids Help Phone, they really kind of know just the surface of what we're all about. They probably know us from, the back of Kit Kats or the back of a milk carton. That's how we all grew up seeing Kids Help Phone over the last 35 years. But what we're really about at Kids Help Phone is we unlock the hope that young people need to thrive in their world. We are a technology and innovation charity with a focus on children and youth. And really what we offer is Canada's only free, confidential, 24/7 multilingual place that young people can reach out to any time of day to get the support they need. No issue too big or too small. They can reach out via phone, text, live chat. And we also offer a number of other program services like Counselor in the Classroom, Resources Around Me, and a number of programs for equity deserving communities like Finding Hope for Indigenous Communities, Rise Up for Black Youth, and New Journeys for newcomers. And the list really goes on, but I'll kind of leave it at there because you said to be brief. But that's what we're all about here at Kids Help.
Well, it sounds like extremely important work. Congratulations for the fine impact that you're making. Canada Helps recently released the 2024 Giving Report, and you, of course, were featured at the launch of that report. And the report documented a number of disturbing trends that are continuing to impact the sector. What parts of the report really resonated with what you're seeing at your organization?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And before I talk a little bit about the areas that really resonated, I want to just offer a bit of context in the lens we're bringing to this conversation. Young people reach out to us from every corner of the country. We actually have the largest data set for youth mental health in Canada. And so we really do bring the voice of youth to the dialogue. We hear about what's on their mind every single day. Our data tells us what's top of mind in real time. And so what we hear from young people really reflects their voices and everything that's on their mind in every corner of the country. And so with that context in mind, there's sort of three main highlight areas that really resonated as we were reviewing what some of the key insights were from the report. And I'll sort of list them and then get into the details of each. The first one was that service usage is at an all-time high. Excuse me. And the first is that service usage is at an all-time high. Of course, the report cited that for many charities. The second main insight that really resonated is that disconnected Canadians are really less likely to give money and time. That's something that we're kind of keeping a close eye on. And then, of course, this notion of hope and how hope connects in with giving, community. The report cites connection in with environmental causes. I actually think it goes deeper than that. And so those were the kind of the three areas that really resonated with us. And I want to take some time to go into each of them, if that's all right, Mary.
Please do.
So starting with service usage, it wasn't a surprise to see that in the report. I mean, we're just coming off of the back of probably what we can call a global trauma with the pandemic. We know about the economic context that we're living in is challenging for a lot of people. So it's not surprising really to hear that demand is up for charities and organizations across the board, and demand is getting hard for charities to meet. And we've certainly experienced that at Kids Help Phone. Before the pandemic, we had about 1.7, 1.8 million interactions across all of our channels annually. And we thought at the time, like, this is huge. How can we possibly meet this and continue to support youth in the way that they need it? Fast forward through the pandemic now, we started to see over 4 million interactions annually across all of our service channels. And that level of demand has really sustained. We are north of 19 million interactions since the start of the pandemic. So that really speaks to the level of demand of young people from every corner of the country that need somewhere to put their feelings, big and small. Now, there is a bit of a silver lining to that, and we'll talk about this a little bit more throughout the conversation, and that is that young people are reaching out. They're demonstrating courage, they're demonstrating resilience, that when they need support, they are calling. And that to us is very inspiring and gives us a lot of hope. The other thing that those changes in demand really challenge us to do at Kids Help One is think differently about how we grow and evolve the organization. I think a lot of charities can really relate to, as your demand increases, you quickly do the things you need to do to catch up to that growth. Well, we now see that this demand actually isn't going anywhere. The mental health crisis that young people are facing continues to actually get worse. And so, with that lens on where the future of mental health and wellness is going for young people, it's giving us the opportunity to really build the organization for future scale and evolution. We're able to build a foundation and infrastructure that allows us to be nimble and flexible, to constantly evolve and innovate and meet the needs of young people. So, certainly challenging to meet that demand. We've become stronger as a result, and the young people of Canada continue to trust Kids Help Fund, and that gives us a lot of hope.
Well, that part is a silver lining, I must say. Especially given the kind of concerning trends that the report discusses. The report talks about the growing polarization in society and an increasing sense of apathy or being overwhelmed when it comes to individuals taking action by volunteering and donating, for instance. What have you experienced in this regard at your organization, especially working with youth?
Yeah, it is a really interesting time right now, to say the least. And to set a little bit of context on the world that we're living in and how different it is than what the world looked like just a few years ago. Right now, young people are absorbing content, and a lot of it in real time through social media, through other news outlets. They're absorbing content about mass shootings, about global pandemics, about wildfires, about geopolitical events in real time through their smartphones, through very clickbaity articles that are intended to create strong emotion of anxiety and fear. That's how they draw attention to these articles. That is vastly different from when we were growing up and we absorbed these issues typically in a safe environment with a caring adult. It came up in a classroom with a teacher. You watched it on the news with your parents at home, where you had a chance to digest it and process it and talk to a caring adult about whatever issue is in front of you. That has vastly changed. And so the world that young people are living in now, where essentially they all have a smartphone in their pocket, is actually causing a lot of challenges with how they interpret these events. And that's creating a lot of overwhelm. And so, what we actually hear overall is that young people are hurting. Young people are hurting for a whole bunch of reasons. And all of this content that they're absorbing in real time is having a really challenging impact on their overall mental health and well being. And that's part of the reason we see the demand that we see. In terms of the contribution and how this leads to volunteerism, donation, and giving, there's actually an inspiring story here that we're seeing at Kids Help Phone. And that's that there is this huge desire for folks to give back and have an impact. We actually are seeing the community really rally around young people. We do see that caring adults, parents, teachers, coaches, they acknowledge the mental health challenge and crisis that young people are in. And there is a deep desire to do something about it. And I'll give three really cool examples of how we've actually seen that, which I know contradicts a little bit of the trend of this decline in support. We've actually seen a lot of rallying around young people. First, we hear a lot from young students who are doing things in their community. We have young students in grade 5 or 6 that are doing bake sales, raising a little bit of money, or actually calling us to ask about Kids Help Phone for a school project. And these conversations actually create a ripple effect in their community. And I hope those young leaders know just how much of an impact those things have. The second thing that we see is through our crisis responder volunteers. So we have over 2,500 active volunteer crisis responders who go through over 30 hours of training to be a crisis responder. These are folks in every corner of the country who want to do something meaningful. So they volunteer their time, they commit to a pretty intensive training program to actually be there on the front line supporting young people. Over 8,000 folks have been trained to date all across Canada. So we continue to see that desire to volunteer. And the third really cool example where we've actually seen individuals take action is we launched Feel Out Loud Canada's largest movement for youth mental health in Canada's history, our $300 million campaign. And we had over 50 artists come together to produce a song called What I Wouldn't Do, North Star Calling, all pro bono, all giving their talent to rally Canada around young people. So certainly there is this sense of overwhelm that's in the community. And you can see where a sense of apathy comes through because these issues feel so big. But what we have found is that when you create really clear opportunities for folks to create impact, to create purpose and see what the result of that is, we actually see a lot of good that's taking place in really interesting and exciting ways. And so that gives us, going back to that word hope, gives us a lot of hope that even though we're facing some challenges in the sector right now, there's glimpses of optimism and excitement that give me enthusiasm that we have an opportunity to be in a good spot in the sector.
Well, you definitely seem to be doing the right moves in order to, I guess, overcome this kind of sense of being overwhelmed and the kind of crisis that we're seeing that the world is going through, and this disconnection that technology has created in people's lives. I'm curious about how you've done it. What have been the ways that you've used to address this, and what do you recommend to other organizations looking to inspire their communities towards taking action and getting beyond this sense of, I guess, helplessness and apathy?
Yeah, the solutions are often very difficult, and so to some of the examples that I gave, I think there are some consistent themes that have been really effective for us to be able to rally the communities in this way. The first is being very clear and purposeful about the opportunities that donors, that volunteers have to give back. Being very clear about what their contributions will do, both volunteering and donating, and also creating the structure to nurture those relationships. So, we talk about crisis responders, over 2,500 active crisis responders that we've got on the platform all across the country. Those aren't folks that just log in and then never hear from Kids Help Phone again. We nurture our volunteers. We give them a ton of opportunities to engage in other community events. We create relationships between them on the platform. And that engagement allows them to feel tightly connected to others in the community. And when I say the community, others across Canada, our Canadian community, to create impact. And so it's creating that clarity, the structure, it's creating the community and connection between them. And also knowing that when folks want to give, they really want to go all in. And so it might seem daunting or scary that we're making volunteers go through over 30 hours of training, but we see them doing it happily. They're building skills that not only can they use at Kids Help Phone, but they can use in their own workplaces, they can use in their own families. So you're actually building transferable skills that move into other parts of their life. And we are a data-driven organization. So I'll give you a couple of stats from a recent survey we did with crisis responders. And 75% of them told us that they actually now feel like they can create a positive change in other people's lives directly from volunteering with Kids Help Phone. And 93% said they feel more optimistic they can create positive change in their communities. So that shows the impact that really thoughtful, structured volunteer opportunities can have, both on the individuals that contribute, but then the ripple effect it can have in their communities. So that certainly is a really big way that we've been able to overcome it. The other thing that I want to speak a little bit about on how we can think as a sector about overcoming some of these challenges we're facing is, as a sector, I think we are really good at talking about crises. We're really good at talking about the problems that we're trying to solve. And that's a really important part of the story. We have to have a really clear, crisp definition of what are the issues. But the other side of that is, what is the long-term impact and change and societal progress we've created? And I'm not talking about change on one-year annual reports or impact over a 2-year period. What is the 20-year generational impact that we've had as a sector? And when you can start to tell that story, that's how I think you start to create hope and optimism. That your donation of $100, your contribution to a local marathon, your hours of volunteering, that all of those things piece together and nudge us towards social progress. And that's actually what we're all about. And I think if collectively as a sector we can tell that story, because it does rely on all of us. There's no one organization that can create the societal progress we're trying to create. Then you create hope, you create optimism, this sense that I'm doing a small thing, but I can see over a long period of time that small thing is going to make my kids, my nieces, nephews, my brothers, my sisters, my aunts, uncles, it's going to make us all better off. And I think that's pretty powerful.
You've spoken very eloquently of the programs and the kind of impact that you've seen and the changes that you've seen even among your community of volunteers. I'm curious, again, looking at solutions, given that the vast majority of the 85,000 charities in Canada um, are small charities without, significant resources in many cases. I wonder, can you crystallize some advice to a smaller organization about things that they could take action on and changes that they could make to overcome these problems of uh, feeling overwhelmed or volunteers, struggling with this sense of apathy?
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about the types of smaller organizations and local organizations that have local impact, or have impacts in particular communities, those are really important bodies of work. Those things create the impact that I was kind of just talking about, where we rely on all of us to create that progress. I think there are a couple things that are useful to keep in mind. One is, always assume that folks in your community actually do care. Lead with the assumption that they want to create impact, that they want to contribute to their community in some way. And if you lead with that assumption, with that optimism and that energy, that gives you the foundation to create a really constructive dialogue around what they can do. And that's often I've seen disconnects, which is folks want to give, they want to do something, but if we're not clear on what or how or when, or it doesn't fit into the everyday chaos we all live in our day-to-day lives right now, it can be very hard to translate that desire, that appetite, into action. And so for smaller organizations, more grassroots types of organizations, find some of those folks, whether it's small businesses, whether it's neighbors or friends or family members that want to do something, and try to get really crisp around what it is and how you nurture that. If it's too big picture or too open ended, it can be very difficult for someone to find their spot of impact. And so really get clear on what's the thing, what's the opportunity, and what's the commitment that would be needed to achieve the impact or the role that you want to see them have. I think that clarity is often a key ingredient that is hard to get to, and easy to overlook. One of my favorite sayings is, "If I had more time, I'd write you a shorter book." How can you get your ask down to a sentence or two that clearly articulates what and the benefit it'll have? That's the work that I think makes a big difference in nurturing those relationships.
That was excellent advice. How do you feel about the future of the nonprofit sector and its ability, along with individual Canadians, to tackle these big issues facing our communities?
Yeah, so certainly when you look at the giving report, there are a lot of trends that are a little eye opening, that give us cause for concern, and I think that's also true for every industry. Every sector has their things that they're worried about for the future of that industry or that sector, whether it's banking or technology or social media. Like every industry has their things. I think with what we see across Canada, I've never been more excited. I've never been more optimistic for the future of impact and social progress. You see incredible public-private partnerships that are taking place. You see people who are aware of the issues in a way they've never been before, because of how much information is coming at us. Even if it's not coming at us in the best way, there's an awareness of these issues in ways that there haven't been before. There's a willingness to talk about these issues with our friends, family, community members. The next generation, which is Gen Z, Gen Alpha, the folks that we talk to all the time, they want to create impact in their lives. Like, it's deep in who they are, is creating impact. And all of those things make me really excited about the future. The final thing that gets me really excited and makes me feel so optimistic is really the young people of Canada. They're strong, they're courageous, they're resilient. The next generation of leaders are going to be incredible. And it's up to all of us to continue to nurture that, because they're going to be the ones that continue to help us all lift all of society and everything that we're trying to accomplish.
Well, Justin, thank you for that bright light and of hope, and thank you for your insights and advice. It's sure to help charities struggling to navigate these changing trends in giving in Canada. Thank you for joining Charity Village Connects.
Thank you so much for having me.